As you probably heard today, the New York Times obtained some details from some of the president's past tax returns. There are a couple of headlines from that story. Only one of them appeared in the paper. First, it turns out Donald Trump was not, in fact, beholden to Russian business interests, or for that matter, to that dastardly Vladimir Putin. For years, they told us that he was. Now we know they were lying. You'd probably guessed that already. The second takeaway from the piece is that in some years, Donald Trump paid a strikingly low effective federal tax rate, probably lower than the rate you are now paying. Trump's accountants took advantage of the many provisions in our tax code to make that possible. What the president did was legal. In fact, it's all but universal among the affluent who earn their money from investments rather than from salaries. Should the president have used these conventional tax loopholes to his own benefit? We'll leave that question to the professional hyperventilators on the other channels. They're probably talking about it right now. In fact, of course they are. But far more interesting is this question. Why does our tax code remain so obviously, so grotesquely unfair? Billionaires should not be paying a lower rate than you are paying, no matter who they are, no matter who the president is. The main problem with America right now is that a shrinking group of people controls a growing share of our nation's wealth and power. America is lopsided, and it's getting more lopsided every year. That makes our country unstable. Lopsidedness is why a dozen left-wing tech oligarchs can decide what you're allowed to say and think. It's why young people seem so hopeless and nihilistic, why so many of them are not starting families. It's why some of them are breaking things in the streets. It's why your grandchildren will almost certainly earn less than you do. And by the way, it's also why Donald Trump got elected 4 years ago. Americans could feel that something was profoundly wrong with the way our country was structured. Suddenly, it didn't feel like we were all in this together. It seemed clear that the people in charge were in it for themselves. So to fix it, voters went outside the system. 4 years later, some good things have happened. But the core drivers of the crisis that we face, a dying middle class and the growing hegemony of billionaires, remain unresolved. This is not a small problem. If we don't fix it soon, it is a guaranteed disaster. No nation can live for long under the tyranny of selfish oligarchs. Post-Soviet Russia couldn't. That's how they got Putin. If we don't flatten our economy, if we don't make it possible once again for normal people to live happy, productive lives, America is going to become a very radical place, and quickly. What happens then? Once again, Russian history provides a guide. Rod Dreher spent the last couple of years immersed in that history. He's written a remarkable new book entitled Live Not by Lies. It comes out tomorrow. Dreher interviewed dozens of people who fled the former Soviet bloc for freer lives here in the West. They know perfectly well what's going on in America right now. They've seen it before. Tonight they've got a message for the rest of us. Rod Dreher joins us now to deliver it. Rod, thanks so much for coming on. Congrats on the book. You've interviewed people who've seen this movie before. What is their message for us?
The message for us is that we Americans had better not think that it can't happen here. It absolutely can. You were talking about what the oligarchs are doing here and how difficult it is for ordinary people to have middle-class lives. I got the same message at dinner in Moscow last year from, I was having dinner with a family, and I said, how is it that anybody could ever have believed what the Bolsheviks said? The father of the family said, you have to understand how hard life was in this country and how the rich had everything and most people had nothing. He said that the Bolshevik Revolution was obviously horrible, but it came from somewhere, and we're seeing similar conditions right here in America.
It came from somewhere. That's exactly right. Vladimir Putin came from somewhere. Soviet Union collapses, a small group of oligarchs take control of everything, boom, you get Putin. In effect, refugees from the Soviet system you talk to, when they watch the woke revolution underway in our country, what's their reaction to it?
They say it seems like old times because they have lived through this sort of thing before, and it makes them so angry that Americans just don't believe them. They think that they're being alarmist. But when I started talking to these people, Tucker, and really got into it and listened to them, I began to see the world like they do. And the chief thing they're worried about is not gulags and secret police coming.
Right.
They see something more insidious. They see a social credit system like they have in China, where the oligarchs and the people who will be running this country will use all the data that big corporations get from us through our smartphones and our computers, and will use that to deny people jobs, to deny us access to universities, and to keep us on the margins of the economy and ruin our lives. They'll be able to get just what they want without having to use the hard totalitarian methods. This will be a soft totalitarianism.
So no Ukraine famine, but a gradual and very firm crackdown on the rest of us. I mean, I don't think I'm an alarmist, but I think that is in progress now, is it not?
Oh, it absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we just don't see it because a lot of it is happening not through the government, but through corporations and
right.
universities and through the media and social media. So we can have our eyes fixed on the government, like in the George Orwell 1984 model, but actually we should be looking to woke capitalists and these other institutions which have so much control over our lives, control that we're giving to them by our social media use.
I got to ask you, you've been a writer for 30 years, mostly identified as a conservative. Why don't conservatives see this? I mean, some do. I think a lot of our viewers do. But out there in conservative world, the focus is on what the government is doing, and they sort of miss that the banks are making it impossible to disagree, for example.
That's exactly right. It doesn't fit our Cold War mindset that says government bad, business good. In fact, things have really shifted. 2015 was the key moment when major corporations, woke capitalists, jumped into the culture war in a very big way on the side of identity politics. Now you can't escape it. If people think that if we just elect the right people, get the right judges on the bench, that'll take care of everything, they're really missing it. Plus, a lot of Americans believe that America is always going to be the land of the free, the home of the brave. They're ignoring what dissidents like Alexander Solzhenitsyn and all these other great people who stood up to communist totalitarianism say, which is it really can happen here, and we have got to prepare ourselves right now for what may be to come.
I think that's exactly right. Quickly, I'm always interested. You spent a long time writing this book, and I cannot recommend it more. How did it change your personal views?
You know, it taught me about how much we Americans, including myself, need to learn how to suffer better. That's what everybody I talked to, including people who had been beaten in prison, said, that Americans are so comfortable and so soft, we don't know how to suffer. I have been thinking a lot over the past year, especially during COVID, about how we have got to be a lot more patient with our suffering so we can endure what is to come. Because this is what the soft totalitarians are going to do. They're going to use our addiction to comfort and to control us.
That's a very wise point. Rod, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tucker.